Bodies are dropping left and right in a military base as a little boy is walking through all the chaos, but he couldn't care less about all the deaths he just caused, and instead he is just interested in finding a woman called Asaka who he has been looking for. A door opens and that same Asaka is seen being held at gunpoint by a woman who we haven't gotten the backstory for. Asaka is surprised to see Yogiri somehow managed to get into this base where she was held captive, but the one holding her hostage threatens to kill her if Yogiri takes another step closer. As she points the gun at Asaka's cheek, Yogiri just stares at her for a bit, and soon after, she drops dead. Asaka has no idea what Yogiri did, but once again, he cares very little for the life he just took, and is just happy to have his Asaka back. And now, Yogiri is being shaken awake by a different girl whom he doesn't recognize. She tells him that her name is Danura, and he asks what she's freaking out over, but she is more surprised that he was able to stay asleep through the huge incident that happened to them. There are bodies on the floor of the bus, and she's got no idea what they are going to do. Outside the bus, they notice a tail moving, so Yogiri throws a microphone at one of the appendages that had stabbed through one of his classmates, and it causes a wyvern that was outside the bus to writhe in pain. It gets up in a position that makes me question the nature of the appendage that was in that boy, and then it charges at the two of them in the bus, so Danura is sure that they are going to die here since there is nothing they can do against a beast as powerful as that thing. But in the heat of the moment, she presses her melons against Yogiri, and that gets him to care just enough to say something and cause the dragon to drop dead before them. Danura is confused and doesn't understand what just happened, so Yogiri pulls out a video game and tells her to calm down so they can talk. But she gets upset that he thinks now is a good time to be playing games. She asks if he doesn't want to leave the bus already, but he sees no reason to be in a rush since there is no guarantee that the outside will be safe for them to venture out into. She understands his point but asks that he put the game down and take the situation seriously for now. Yogiri obliges and asks to be informed of what happened that led them to the situation they find themselves in right now, so Danura explains that they were riding the bus like they would any other field trip day, but as they went through a tunnel, they found themselves in a sunny meadow. At first it was a pleasant yet confusing surprise, but then someone boarded the bus and introduced themselves as the sage Shion. She seemed nice enough at first glance, but as the teacher asks the reasonable question of what's going on, she boons his head off without hesitation. She tells everyone that she doesn't intend to harm anyone directly, but if they make her angry, they can fuck around and find out. She tries to make a joke, but it is so spectacularly unfunny that she freaking kills the driver for her own lack of a sense of humor. She explains to the rest of the students that she izakay'd them all here to become sages. This world is ruled by sages, but it is occasionally necessary to replenish the number of sages, which is why they were summoned here. She waves her hands and causes a majority of the students to begin glowing as she installs a system in their bodies called Battle Song. It comes with a status window, but Danura didn't get one, so she isn't sure what it looks like. Shion goes on to say that they have been given what this world calls gifts, so they are going to have to use those gifts well to become sages in the near future. Also, they only got 1 month to become sages, otherwise they die. Danura raises her hand and asks what happened because she didn't get one of those gifts, but Shion just says that there are times when people aren't suited to receive the magical gifts. So in other words, tough luck kid, you're screwed. Without a gift, she's doomed to become nothing more than livestock in this world. So with that out of the way, she tells them all that their first quest will be starting soon where a dragon will be attacking them, so they should try their best not to die. Danura's friend is looking over her menu screen and sees information about the dragon that will be attacking soon, though Danura still can't believe an actual dragon is going to attack. One member of their class gets the attention of the others and asks that they all work together so they can clear the mission, and to do that, they are going to need to know what they are working with, so he asks that they all reveal the gifts that they were given. The class comply with his requests and write down their abilities to formulate a plan, but Danura, who doesn't have an ability, can't participate. However, she wasn't the only one who didn't get an ability since there were 3 others who had the same thing happen to them. Ayaka Shinozaki and Yuichiro Kiryu. And then there is also Yaguri, who managed to sleep through the entire commotion undisturbed, but then again, it's not like he ever did anything other than sleep in the first place. A while later, the rest of the gifted classmates who were sharing their ability lists begin to leave without saying a word to any of the people in the back who didn't receive one. So Danura tries to wake Yogiri up so they can follow the rest of the class as they exit the bus, but the one who led them the gifted class stops Kiryu. He tells him that he didn't receive a gift, and while those who did have gained some kind of special ability that allows them to do things like rip a chair out of the ground with ease, the rest of the class are just regular people who are still failing P class. Shinozaki asks the gifted class to protect the ones without gifts since they have the power to do so, but the guy thinks it would only become a burden for the class if they had to protect people who were so weak the entire time they were trying to become sages. Thus, they came up with an ingenious plan. They are gonna ditch them all here and use them as bait. Everyone in the class agreed to do this to them, so there's no one to appeal to for help. Another one of their classmates uses her ability to cast charm on the giftless classmates, making them all look far more attractive than they were before, but unfortunately, they're going to match with that dragon and it's not going to be a pleasant experience for them. The rest of the class leaves them to their fate and they have no idea what they are going to do, but things only get worse for them as the dragon arrived and began the slaughter. And that leads us to where we are now, though someone was peacefully sleeping in the back of the bus while his classmates were getting slaughtered. Yokari now understands the gravity of his situation. He is in another world, so how is he supposed to charge his video game without any outlets available? Aside from that, if what they learned from the gifted class is to be believed, then there is likely only one dragon in the area, so it should be safe for them to head outside now since it is already dead. Before they go, Danara asks Yokiri if he did something to the dragon earlier, but he just says he told it to die and it died. She doesn't believe him, but that's what he did, so he just steps out of the bus. There are 3 options for places they can go to after this: a hill, the city, or the forest, but it's probably a good idea not to go into an unknown forest unprepared. Before a decision can be made, Danara notices something flying towards them. Yokiri asks if it is another dragon, but this time it is 3 of their classmates, Higashida, Fukuhara, and Hanakawa. She's surprised to see them flying in, so Yokiri asks if he should kill them, just in case. Danara stops him since they should at least hear them out before they murder anyone, but Yokiri points out that leaving the giftless behind to be killed isn't something a good person would do. Danara still doesn't want to have to kill anyone, but even if she doesn't hold a grudge against them, they may still be hostile towards them for no reason. The 3 gifted students are shocked to see that the dragon is dead and moreover, Danara is still alive. Their plan was to use their powers to turn her body into a zombie and, well, do monetizable things to her. And they say all of this right in earshot of Danara herself, so she realizes Yokiri may have been right about them not being good people and is suddenly much less opposed to killing them. Higashida launches a fireball which is powerful enough to melt straight through the bus and carve into a mountain behind them, all to show the power difference between them and force Danara into giving up and becoming their plaything. Higashida says that he decided in this world that he would do anything he wants, and the first thing on that list is to screw Danara along with the other 2 guys who say they've been dreaming about this for a long time. Danara is freaked out by the thought of what they would do to her, but Yokiri tells her to calm down while he puts them in a situation where they can have a civil discussion. He then points at Higashida and tells him to die. The others laugh thinking Yokiri is just being cringy, but to their utter shock, he actually does fall to the ground and die. They don't understand what happened, but Yokiri told him to die and he did. Nothing much to explain there. He tells them not to move, but the other one drops to his knees to help his friend, and as a result, Yokiri tells him to die as well. Hanakawa is now the only one left, and Yokiri reiterates that if he moves at all, you'll be killed. Yokiri now begins to explain his ability, but first he instructs Hanakawa to check to make sure those guys are actually dead, so he goes to them and starts trying to heal them. His healing ability allows him to help anyone recover from injuries, no matter how grave they are, but his powers do nothing here because the people he's trying to heal are already dead. Hanakawa starts saying Yokiri went too far with this, but they were the ones who came in here trying to kidnap Danara for loot purposes. Yokiri's ability is instant death to any target, so if he simply thinks about wanting to kill someone, they will immediately die without exception. Hanakawa can't believe what he is hearing since that power is way too broken, but he tries to play it off and get in close for a sneak attack. However, Yokiri stops him before he can do anything stupid and informs him that he also has the ability to determine if there is anything killing intent directed towards him. So when you combine the 2 abilities, literally anyone who has the intent of killing Yokiri may die just because they thought about harming him. Hanakawa breaks down, realizing that there is no way he can win against Yokiri, but Yokiri asks why he got so full of himself after having just received his gift, so Hanakawa explains that this isn't the first time that they have come to this world. A while ago, the magicians of the Kingdom of Iman summoned them to defeat the Demon Lord, but the gist of it is that they went on adventures in this world for about a year, and once they finally defeated the Demon Lord, they were returned to Earth. Velvet can't seem to remember those 3 ever disappearing for an entire year. According to Hanakawa, after they were returned to Earth, they found out that only a few hours has passed since they were initially summoned, so Yokiri takes that to mean that there is a way for them to return to Earth. He raised his hand to finish off Hanakawa to prevent any future issues with him, but he begs to be spared by Yogiri. He tries to get Danura to help him out here, but after what he said when he initially came here, she is the last person who would ever want to do him a favor. As a last resort, Hanako pulls out a rare slave collar item which will make the wearer unable to disobey the commands of the first person they see. He puts the collar on and is now bound to the will of Danura, but she doesn't want to have to deal with him, so she offloads the task of being his master onto Yogiri. Since Hanako can't disobey his orders now, Yogiri decides to leave him alive for a while, but he tells him to go stand in the forest full of magical beasts and wait. He also tells him to leave behind any valuable items that he has, so Hanako is forced to drop his entire inventory worth of loot from his last summoning. Danura asks if he may be being a little too harsh and taking all of his stuff away and making him wait in a deadly forest, but they aren't exactly friends and there's no telling when he might betray them in the end. Danura then asks why he is sticking with her since she could also betray him at some point, but if it happens then it happens, he is fine with it since he is the one who chose to trust her. Danura blushes a little and asks why he is going through such lengths to protect her even though they have basically never spoken to each other before, but he doesn't really know. If you had to think of a reason, then it would probably be because of her melons though. She gets red in the face from embarrassment and yells about him only wanting her for her body as well, but elsewhere, Shion is in bed and very pleased with herself when someone called Yuchi comes in to give her a report on the students she summoned. They'd have cleared the first mission, but there were 4 fatalities in the process. Shion assumes the fatalities were from the students who weren't able to receive gifts, but while 2 of them did die, there were also 2 ranked gift holders that died in the process. That's a big surprise, especially since they died without any warning, but Shion doesn't think it is anything that they really need to be worried about, so she tells Yuichi that he can handle it any way he sees fit. Yogiri and Danura finally make it to the city gates after several hours of walking, but they see the guards closing the gates as they approach. Yogiri expected as much since it is getting late, so they rush over to get their attention before they get locked out for the night. Danura goes up to one of the guards, but they can't understand a single word she is saying. The 2 get brought in and wait under a tent while the guards go get their boss to handle the situation, and after a few moments, Masahito arrives annoyed that he still has to work so late into the night. He understands Japanese, much to the relief of Danura, and he already seems to have an idea of what is going on here. The rest of their classmates came through town earlier that day, so he has already dealt with them. Normally, he would get charged a toll in order to enter the city, but he receives clear threats. I mean instructions from Shion not to get in the way of the sage candidates, so he won't be charging them today. Yogiri asks about the other sage candidates he mentioned coming through and recalls that they had mentioned something about going to the capital, so he asks which direction that would be, but while Masahito is not allowed to get in their way, there is no incentive for him to help them, so Yogiri gets up to leave. However, as they are passing, he gets a good look at Danura's assets and says he wouldn't mind it if Danura stayed in his mansion for the night. But only Danura. She doesn't seem interested and grabs Yogiri's hand to run away with a look of disgust on her face. She may not have liked the guy, but the reason she dragged Yogiri away so quickly was because she was afraid he would kill the guy for what he said. Yogiri doesn't know why she would think he is the kind of person to do something like that, but then again, he did kill his classmates back there for just moving, so it doesn't seem out of character for him. She moves on to another topic and talks about how amazing this town looks. It even has people that look like beast folk her. And speaking of beast folk, she gets approached by a cat girl called Mariyu, who can tell that this is their first time in town. She asks if they might be in trouble or in need of any kind of help from her because if they are, she is there to assist with anything. She seems a little too friendly for someone they just met, so Yogiri asks what she stands to gain by helping them out here. She doesn't even try to hide it and says she just wants to get along with all the sage candidate boys because they are all down bad and dying of thirst. And as a cat girl, if the sage boys become successful in future, she can roll a nat 10 on seduction and live the easy life from then on. Danura doesn't agree with the thought process, but she can at least respect Mariyu's honesty on the matter. Mariyu goes on to say that Danura doesn't need to worry because she won't attempt seduction on anyone who already has a girlfriend. She is well aware of what yandere girls are willing to do to keep their man, so she isn't going to risk it. Her seductive intentions aside, they don't see anything else shady about Mariyu, and Danura wanted to take a look around town anyway before it gets too dark, so they decide to accept the cat girl's help. What's the worst that could happen? It's not like this is a trap or anything. Bulk, it was a trap. The 2 end up surrounded by a bunch of thieves after they spend the entire evening shopping in town. So Yogiri tries to de-escalate the situation by asking if they will accept money to leave them alone. The thieves agree that money would be nice, but what they are really after is talentless sage candidates like Yogiri and Danura. Whenever Shion goes and summons a bunch of sage candidates, the ones with good gifts often end up going wild with their power, and the thieves have gotten sick of all the Dragon Ball fights happening in their backyards and bringing down the property value. However, they are weak as shit compared to the gift bearers, so it's not like they can complain about it either. So they do this instead and go after the weak sage candidates to make themselves feel better. They plan to kill Yogiri and then make use of Donura's irresistible assets, but now that he has clear grasp on their intentions and has failed to de-escalate, Yogiri is going to have to make a call to the local mortician. Donura tries to get Maryu to call it off because someone is definitely going to die here, and it's not going to be Yogiri. But she thinks they are just bluffing because there is no way someone without a gift could be so powerful in this world. Donura has done her best to save them, but it's time to make that call. First, we're going to need 5 coffins for the people behind Yogiri, but he tries to take it easy on the rest of the people there. So he tells this guy to just half die, essentially turning him into a vegetable. That was still a little extreme. He tries going for individual body parts instead, but that is still pretty bad regardless. I know he was trying to take it easy on them, but at this point, it looks more like he's just torturing them, so he decides to just put an end to this. Maryu realizes that she fricked up big time and tries to beg for her life with her sob story of needing to make money to help her sick brother. But to that, Yogiri raises the point. You tried to kidnap and sell us into slavery. She isn't going to be getting a redemption arc either, as Yogiri is ready to put an end to this and tells both her and the last guy to just die. However, this time nothing happens and they thank the heavens that they are still alive, but they aren't going to stick around for Yogiri to try again, so they both make a run for it. Donura asks him why he chose to let them go, but he didn't. His kill success rate is always 100%. So just when Maryu thought she was a safe distance away, the death kicked in, and believe it or not, she dies. Oh yeah, this guy ends up dying too, but no one really cares about him anyway. With all the attackers dead, Yogiri and Donura begin to walk off. However, they are called back by the city's guards who got news of the abnormally high number of coffins requested from the mortician, so they want to have a little chat with him about what just happened. Yogiri tries to lie his way out of this and just says that he found these guys on the floor already, but the guard isn't falling for his excellent deception tactics because she saw the whole thing. Those guys suddenly fell dead just before they could attack. Donura can't believe Edelgard is making them the suspects after they were the ones who got attacked first, and if she was watching the entire time, why didn't she do something to help when they were clearly in trouble? Edelgard makes the claim that she was just trying to find out who those guys are selling all their victims to, so they were going to let them kidnap Yogiri and Donura and just follow them until they found the guy they were looking for. She also tells them that the guards have received the sage's protection, so the gifts they have as sage candidates won't work on them, so they should just come quietly if they don't want any trouble. However, one of her men uses his appraisal ability on both and finds that neither of them actually possess any sage abilities, so they can't explain how Yogiri could have possibly managed to do this, and thus they have no grounds to make an arrest. Edelgard admits defeat and tells them they are free to go, and Edelgard's subordinate apologizes for his commander's rudeness. Yogiri tells him it's fine, but as an apology, it would be nice if he could hook them up with a place to stay for the night. The man doesn't disappoint as Yogiri and Donura now have a really fancy inn to stay at. While Donura is still taking on the beauty of the place, Yogiri asks if she would like to share the same room with him while they are here. She finds that to be a bit embarrassing, so Yogiri offers to just have their rooms be next to each other. Donura gets to her room and marvels at the luxury it provides as she jumps on the huge bed. She starts thinking about Yogiri's initial request to share a room with her and wonders what kind of lewd things he must have been thinking about to ask for such a thing. Then again, this is literally the first time she's been away from Yogiri since they got to this world, and without him there to protect her, she would either be dead or enslaved thrice over. She wonders if Yogiri really likes her after all, but I think he already made it clear that he was specifically after those soft chest cushions of hers. While she squeezes her face into a pillow out of embarrassment, she hears a sound coming from the room and looks up to find a ghost floating over her bed. She's freaked out at first, but then she realizes that the ghost happens to look a lot like her sister. But her sister is still alive and must have done something really bad because this is actually their family guardian spirit, and she makes it clear that she wants to have nothing to do with Donura's sister ever again. She is here to help Donura in her time of need since she is facing a very troubling series of events, but she wanted to help her, and why didn't she do it when the dragon attacked, or maybe when she was almost sold into slavery twice in the same day? The guardian spirit, Moko, is an honest woman and tells her that she is scared to death by Yogiri, and that really tells you it's bad because she's already dead. With the kind of power Yogiri has, if she were to appear recklessly in front of him and make a bad impression, she could be erased from existence in an instant. So she wants Donura to tell Yogiri about her before she shows herself to him so he won't think of her as a threat. Donora says she'll tell him tomorrow, but then asks what kind of help Moko was going to give her. Moko explains that since she is a spirit, she can protect Donora from most things aside from physical attacks. In fact, she was the one who prevented the battle song Sage Gift from being installed into her body back on the bus. Donora gets angry because Moko basically put her at a permanent disadvantage in this world, but Moko doesn't see the problem since she thought Donora would have been opposed to a random person putting something suspicious inside her body. The Sage Gift certainly has its advantages, but once you allow it to be installed, then Shein basically has control over you for the rest of your life, so it's not the best trade-off. Besides, it is Moko's goal to ensure that Donora returns to the Earth to become the successor of their family martial arts technique. But while Donora certainly would like to go home, she's pretty much stuck just relying on Yogiri because she is so weak. But that's where Moko is going to work her magic, as she will teach Donora all the centuries of fighting techniques she knows of. The next morning, Donora meets Yogiri downstairs after not getting any sleep the whole night because of Moko's midnight training arc. She asks Yogiri if they are going to meet up with the rest of their classmates after this, and that is something he wanted to talk to her about. They both meet with a woman called Celestina, and she's been helping Yogiri by looking up the locations of all his classmates and how to get to them from here, as well as getting language translation and status concealment items for them. She even made him a charger for his game console, and I've got to say, Celestina is really earning that paycheck. She has also prepared 2 tickets for the both of them to reach the capital by train with a noon departure time. Yogiri thanks her for all her hard work, and if you were wondering how they've been paying for all the stuff they've gotten, they still have tons of gold they robbed from the 3 returner students. Yogiri asks Celestina if she can take their leftover gold and do something like put it in investments for them, and she totally does it with no issues. The two move on to continue their journey to join up with the rest of their classmates and are heading toward the Primal Forest because Celestina thinks they will head there to train. But midway through the ride, Yogiri senses something and pushes Donora down to avoid a slash that destroys the entire train car. One of those Dragon Ball Sage fights is happening nearby and the collateral damage is really high. Elsewhere, one of this world's sages receives a report from Edelgard about the situation that occurred earlier, but they still don't know what happened since the guy who is still alive hasn't been able to give them an answer. This was the guy whose eyes Yogiri told to die, but they do not know about his ability, so they are confused and trying to figure out the cause. Even after ripping out one of the guy's eyes and using healing magic to grow a new one back in place, he still can't see. The sage then tries to use her vampire nature to turn him into one and give him regenerative powers, but that doesn't work either. Their experiments are cut short soon after as someone bursts through the wall with a sword in hand, but we'll get to that later as we head back to Yogiri and Donora, who are still on the destroyed train. Yogiri can tell that they were not the intended targets for that attack, but it is still pretty dangerous for them to be here. It looks like a sage is attacking a robot that the people of this world call aggressors, and the battle is reshaping the landscape. Donora asks Yogiri if he can just kill them because they are in the way, but while Yogiri may be a killing machine, he still has rules that even he has to follow as well. He can't just go around killing people because they inconvenience him, and those guys didn't intentionally send the blast hits way, so there would be no reason to kill him. But then again, the sage seems to be a piece of shit, so Yogiri decides to kill him after all. Back with the vampire sage, the person that attacked has just blown away the entire castle, but with her innate healing ability, she was able to just tank the explosion. She did something terrible to this guy's lover, but once again, nobody cares about him. Plus, she's immortal, so she doesn't even bother killing him and just chucks him off the roof. She then instructs Edelgard to find Yogiri since she wants to figure out how he managed to kill all those thieves. Meanwhile, after Yogiri killed the sage, the robot does the smart thing and tries to negotiate things peacefully rather than fight. But it doesn't have anything that Yogiri wants, so instead, Donora gets something. Later that day, the vampire sage holds a meeting with Shein over the dead sage they just found near the train tracks, and she suspects that Yogiri might be behind this. Shein doesn't really care but leads her to do as she sees fit, so the vampire sage calls on one of her subordinates and tells him to get the zombie army ready. Back to Yogiri and Donora. After a ton of walking, they can finally see the city of Hanabusa, which looks a lot like a Japanese city. While Donora is still all peppy and full of energy, Yogiri is absolutely winded after the long journey. Donora suggests that Yogiri start exercising more often, but the audacity of this bitch to say something like that after Yogiri just gave himself scoliosis from all the carrying he has been doing for the team. He's got a KD ratio that basically caused the extinction of the forest monsters and some bandits for good measure. After realizing she's been of no help at all this entire trip, she apologizes but asks that he tells her when they are in danger so she won't be acting so carefree and naive. Before they go, Danura asks if his being tired after using his ability means he has a limit to how many times it can be used. But nope, he has no cooldown on it and the devs never patched it out, so he's free to spam instant death as much as he wants. They head into the city and are amazed by its futuristic appearance as they walk through its streets. They end up coming across a hotel that Celestina had suggested that they use, so they decide to head in and stay for a while before they do anything else. As they walk inside the hotel, they come across one of their classmates, Tachibana, who greet them normally like he didn't abandon them to their doom. Danura asks why he is here since, from what they know, he should still be with the rest of the class in the forest. He responds saying he split up from the rest of the group because he didn't agree with their inefficient methods of gaining levels. He had something much more beneficial for himself in mind: slavery. As soon as he got here, he learned that slaves were still a thing, so when asked how many he wanted, he said yes. These are the primary members of his harem: Erica, Stephanie, Chelsea, Euphemia, and Riza. These are quite the array of different girls, but they all have one thing in common for now: they hate Danura. Tachibana tells them to shut up for a bit while he talks to his classmates, and while he does that, Yogiri tells Danura that he seems really confident, so he must have a strong ability of some kind. They still don't know what his ability is, but he has been like that since he was in high school. He had the ladies flocking to him, so he was always a bit of a narcissist, and he would switch girlfriends more often than Amazon goes through employees. Tachibana speaks up and says that since they've met here by chance, then would Danura like to become his slave, lover? She's petrified by the absurdity of his statement, but he assures her that it is fine since if she is worried about what will happen to Yogiri, while he usually doesn't swing that way, he'll make an exception for Yogiri as well. Neither of them can believe the shit they are hearing, so they ask what makes him so confident to make a request like that, and Tachibana reveals that he has the class of Dominator, meaning he is able to absolutely dominate any weaker beings. That is a pretty powerful ability, but if Tachibana is here, how does he intend to get stronger if all the others are busy training while he's lounging around here? But that isn't much of a problem for him since his ability is also broken. He explains that after the class had safely made it to the town and were celebrating, he was approached by one of his classmates, Utori, who told him about the true nature of his ability. Utori has the class of consultant, so he came to give Tachibana some insight on what he should do from now on. Right now in the class, everyone is avoiding him because of his class of Dominator, and Utori doesn't want a fight to break out among them. So he informs Tachibana that the true power behind his ability is a pyramid scheme. He can go buy a bunch of cheap slaves and make them go out and fight for him. Then if the slaves win, he gets experience and can make the defeated people become his slaves as well, so his network of slavery will only keep on growing as time passes and his XP gain will be exponential. That's certainly useful information, but the menu screen didn't have any information like that, so he questions how Utori was able to figure this out. Utori revealed that his ability allows him to see the hidden details of anyone's ability, but that still doesn't answer the question of why is he giving a free consultation like this. As a consultant, his chances of successfully becoming a sage are tied to the success of his classmates, so he wants everyone to do the best they can do so they don't end up as livestock on the chopping block. That basically means that at this very moment, Tachibana's number of slaves is rising and he is gaining levels without needing to do anything at all. So he re-extends the offer and asks Danura to become his slave, but she still likes having her freedom. Tachibana agrees to leave and says he will give her time to think about the proposal. At least he isn't being pushy about it, so he isn't much of a threat to them for now, but Yogiri points out that it might actually be safer for Danura if she were to go with him since she would be close to the top in the pyramid scheme, but that's still not an option. 3 days pass and Yogiri has been asleep this entire time and Danura can't do anything by herself because she needs him to be there to carry the team. It has been peaceful this far, but not anymore as the zombie army has begun to invade the city. But once again, Yogiri isn't awake, so Danura just closes the curtains and chooses to ignore it. While she is laying on the bed, Mokomoko informs her that there is someone currently targeting her, but she isn't able to see them, so since she isn't built to handle threats at all, Danura grabs the phone to call Yogiri for help. Yogiri wakes up to the call for help, so he leaves his room to go save her life again. As he enters the hallway, he is able to scan and can sense some killing intent coming from someone, so he traces it back and kills the assailant, who happens to be Erica. He knocks on Danura's door to tell her there was actually someone targeting her, so now they got to discuss their next move. But first he makes a call to the local morgue for one more coffin. Tachibana was out in a dungeon when he noticed that Erica's signal suddenly stopped working, so something must have happened, and on the other end, Yogiri realizes that Tachibana might come back for revenge since he killed one of his top slaves, so they had better leave soon. Meanwhile, Tachibana has just effortlessly cleared the 100th floor of the dungeon with no trouble thanks to the skills of his servants, which he is able to use at will. And now that he is done with that, he decides to check on the situation with Erika suddenly dying. He looks through her memories and she just kind of fell over suddenly. He doesn't know what killed her, but Euphemia thinks she might have been jealous of Dawnura and tried to eliminate her, leading to what they saw happen. Tachibana doesn't really care about Erika, but he doesn't want Dawnura to leave without becoming his slave, so he takes a less diplomatic approach and has some of his other servants try to keep Dawnura from leaving. They get cornered by Riza, who uses an ice spell to block off the hallway, but that doesn't stop Yogiri because he can just tell the ice to die, and it does. He asserts dominance over Riza by killing her wand as well and tells her that he can kill anything just by thinking about it. So if she tries any funny business, she will die. She caves and tells him that she's a wand master, so she can attack without a wand, also giving him the wand that she kept stashed away in between her mounds. She was ordered to capture Dawnura, but that also means the other servants were given the same order and Dawnura nearly gets sneak attacked, but she's finally starting to pull her weight in the game and gets her first kill. Riza tries to use the distraction to get up and use her extra hidden wand, but that counts as funny business and Yogiri was clear what would happen if she tried that. Riza gets killed, leaving only the little girl and her dolls to attack them, but he just kills the dolls and goes down to finish off the girl. Chelsea is smart enough to know that she isn't winning this, so she gives up and gives Yogiri all the info that he wants. Since Chelsea made the smart choice to snitch on Tachibana, he was left with no other option than to use his last resort, his cockroach army. They may just be cockroaches, but with this many of them in one place, if Tachibana gave the order for them all to attack at once, then they could probably end up killing a human. For instance, they could crawl into your mouth and nose and squirm around in your throat until you suffocate to death. But now that we've got enough nightmare fuel for the day, we see Euphemia telling Tachibana that it might not be a good idea to attack someone who claims to be able to kill anybody, but Tachibana isn't backing down because he is a dominator, so if he doesn't kill Yogiri, he won't be the main character. He orders the cockroaches to begin their attack, but as soon as the killing intent reaches Yogiri, he was able to trace it back to Tachibana and kill him on the spot. Now that Tachibana is dead, the cockroaches won't attack them anymore, but it still is a room full of cockroaches, so they don't stay there for too long. Meanwhile, Stephanie and Euphemia are left with Tachibana's dead body, so having regained her freedom, Euphemia just dips. However, as she comes up to the surface, she is met by a wasteland, where a forest once was and a giant glob of darkness that had just passed through the area. The vampire sage is also there to get information about the situation. She bites Euphemia and turns her into a vampire, so she will tell her everything that has happened. Meanwhile, Dawnura and Yogiri finally make it out onto the streets, but remember that thing about the zombie army that Dawnura ignored. Yeah, looks like that's a problem now. This was the end of episode 3. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.